Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Megan Kearns. My pronouns are she, her. I write film reviews for Edge Media Network. I'm a co-host of the Slashers podcast. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and a member of Gallica, the Society for LGBTQ Entertainment Critics.
My name is Dave Riedel. I forgot that it was my turn, everyone. My name is Dave Riedel. I write about movies. My pronouns are he, him, Bafka, blah, 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 blah. I'm doing the short version tonight.
My name is Evan Crean. My pronouns are he, him. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living, and co-host of the It's the Pictures podcast.
Yes, you are, sir.
I feel like I should salute you too, because you've got like a lot of stuff. I'll salute you both next show.
Okay. We can have salutes go around.
Yeah.
I was going to say, in case you're wondering, it's an inside joke. Evan likes to salute me because Gallica sounds like a Star Trek term.
Yeah. Like Gallica sounds like, the Federation of Planets or something.
Yes. So you can't see us, but even though we do film this, but yes, we are saluting. All right. And before we jump into this week's movies, we also want, in addition to saluting, we also want to tell you about our Patreon. Every week we put out bonus episodes. And this week is no different. And except we're talking about our Patreon poll winner for the month. And the winner for the fall themed movies was the Diane Keaton starring film Baby Boom. And we had a delightful conversation about that film. So if you're a patron, go check it out. And if you're not a patron, consider joining. All right, now let's get to this week's films. We're going to be talking about the sports drama Rezbal and talking about the drama In the Summers. We're going to kick things off first with Rezbal, which is written and directed by Sidney Freeland. It's also written by Sterling Harjo, and it stars Kochani Bratt, Jessica Matten, Amber Midthunder, and Julia
Jones.
Thank you, Julia Jones. Sorry, I was trying to pull up too many things, too many tabs open. Story of my life. So let me give you the synopsis of the film. In the heart of Chusca, New Mexico, the Chusca Warriors, a high school basketball team rich in Native American heritage, face their greatest challenge. After the loss of their star player, the team must unite like never before to keep their dreams of a state championship alive. This is more than just a game. It's a journey of resilience and unity, a true underdog story deeply rooted in Native American culture. Yes, so that is true, of course, because that comes from the press release, not from IMDb. And it starts right away where we dive into the basketball team and we see them playing and we see their coach, who's played by Jessica Matten. And she is a coach who came from coaching a WNBA team, and now she coaches this high school team. And there are two guys who are very good friends, and one of them is the star player, and then they're there for a practice, and I'm sorry, not practice, they're there for a game, and they're ready to go, and the star player doesn't show up, and the coach is like, what the fuck, where's the star player? And so she changes the roster a bit, and then finds out and has to announce to the guys that he has died, but not only has he died, he committed suicide, which is extremely tragic, of course. So the movie kind of starts off on this like light note, like you have kind of jovial sports announcers, and you hear the kind of jovial radio announcers talking about this team, and you have like, ooh, we're fun playing basketball. But the movie digs into very serious issues right away. Like it also deals with the lead character's mother, who is an alcoholic. And so we're dealing with suicide. We're dealing with alcoholism. We're dealing with some really serious issues here. So as the team is going along and they're not doing as well as they could be doing, they decide to start using the Navajo language to do plays and kind of call numbers and things like that. And so they're really getting entrenched even more so into their native culture. And they're also playing Rezball, which obviously is the title of the movie, but it's also a specific kind of playing basketball. It is, quote, a transition-based basketball that forces tempo with aggressive play, quick scoring, and assertive defense. So they hope, the coach and the team hope to overpower other teams by their speed. So that's basically the broad strokes. Dave, you also saw this. Did you want to fill in anything that I left out?
I'll give you the ending first. They win.
Yay! Woohoo!
After having a very difficult season where they go, I think they go 0-9 at first, or maybe they go 1-9 for the first 10 games, and then they win like the next 14, and then they lose one or nearly lose one because they're celebrating too early, like a bunch of boneheads.
They got too
Different
excited.
from chuckleheads. Last week we had chuckleheads. This week we have boneheads.
Who were the chuckleheads last week? What movie was that? I don't remember.
It was Seeking Mavis Beacon.
Thank you. Oh, that's right. I called the two filmmakers a couple of chuckleheads. Oh boy. Making friends and influencing people.
Everywhere you go.
Yeah. So anyway, the final game, the team they beat at the end is the team that wipes their ass in that first game they lose.
Right.
They lose like 83-20 or something. I mean, it's so lopsided. It almost seems like it can't actually be a real score, mostly because high school games don't ever score that high, even like elite schools. So, and I just wanted to mention that if anybody knows basketball at all, the coach wants them to shoot within 7 seconds of getting possession of the ball,
shot clock. Yep.
which is so fucking fast. I mean, that's that's unreal. But they pull it off. And I found this to be, aside from the opening, which I did not realize was going to hinge on Natani, the kid who unalives himself, being depressed because his mother and sister had died in a car accident. And I just didn't expect him he's set up to be the main character.
He is, yes.
It's kind of like when you watch the first 7 episodes of Game of Thrones and then Sean Bean dies.
Ned Stark. Oh.
Which you should have seen coming because it's Sean Bean, but still.
Right. He's a very low survival rating.
I know, right? But if it was anybody else other than Sean Bean, you'd never know. Because going in, you're like, oh, he's going to be fine. He's going to make it. He's going to wiggle his way out of this somehow.
And that's what I thought about this. It's like, oh, Natani's going to be the thing, and he's Jordan, and Jimmy is Scottie Pippen. I don't know which of them is Dennis Rodman. We can figure that out later. So anyway, I do have to say though, I found this kind of trite and predictable. I think there were some good performances. I think that was it Julia Jones who played Jimmy's mom?
Yes.
I thought she was excellent.
I love Julia Jones.
She's always good.
Always great.
Yeah, yep. She's always good. And she's good in this, and she really does play that. She really knows how to underplay, basically. And she does that very well here. And I think, unfortunately, that like you can tell a lot of these kids are first-time actors. And I think that the kid who plays Jimmy is almost good, but not quite. I mean, there are some moments. Now, I know his character's kind of soft-spoken, but there are some moments in the movie where he speaks so quietly, I couldn't understand what he was saying, even when I turned the volume up.
Yeah, I had to put the subtitles on.
Yeah. So there's that. I didn't think that that Jessica Matten was particularly good, which is kind of a bummer because she's kind of the lead too. Well, she is the lead. I mean, Jimmy's the
yeah, they're kind of both the lead. I feel like they're both the leads. Yeah, but you're right. She is more the lead.
Yeah,
I guess, yeah,
like in a traditional sense. Yeah.
Yes.
And, I think what does make this a little more interesting is the fact that it largely takes place on a reservation, and these kids are, indigenous, they're Navajo. But it's, as far as the story itself goes, you may as well go watch Hoosiers. It's basically the underdog team comes around and they beat the asshole team at the end. And the way they beat the asshole team is Jimmy, they're down by 1. Jimmy's going up for a shot, and the asshole from who like their star player on the other team, I can't remember what they're called.
The tall blonde guy.
The tall blonde kid, from the Catholic basketball team. Flagrant foul, just whacks Jimmy across the nose. And I was thinking, what would be great here is if the refs call the foul on Jimmy and then the season's over. Because I always want to be surprised, by endings. But no, they call the foul on the asshole kid, and so Jimmy gets 3 shots because it's a flagrant foul. And so he makes the first one and ties the game. And then he's like, has this, he imagines his mother. I don't think he knows his mom's gotten sober. I think she's kind of kept it to herself. So he imagines her sitting on the court with him, giving him that same speech that she gave outside their house when he was shooting baskets. She's like, oh, natives, we always find a way to lose. And he's, and then he misses a shot, the second shot. So it's still tied. And then it goes back to her again. And I can't remember. She either says that line again or something similar. And then he says something like, not this time, or what, I don't know. It's his entire performance is very soft spoken. So, and then he makes the third shot and they win. So, and then the movie does end with his mom and he playing 1-on-1 at the basket on their street, which is kind of a nice touch. I liked that a lot. But otherwise, I just kind of felt like this is fine. It's designed to be kind of a feel-good movie with one of the most downbeat openings I've ever seen in a feel-good movie. I mean, you have 3 horrific deaths at, all thankfully off screen, but good Lord. So I remember when the police walk into the game, and I'm like, what the fuck? They're going to arrest one of the kids? Because I really didn't see it coming. So
I didn't either.
Score 1 for Resball, I guess. But that was really the only thing that, I mean, even down to like Jimmy finding a girlfriend is like cliche, because he doesn't speak Navajo as well as the other kids on the team. So when they're translating the plays, because he's the team captain, he volunteers to do it, but then he needs to have somebody teach him, what the words mean. So he asks the woman who's his like supervisor, who's all like his age, they're in high school together, at the restaurant where he works, and so she teaches him, and then they fall in love. Because why wouldn't they? Serious question though, Megan.
Yeah.
I said there were ASMR moments in this movie.
Oh yeah, you did.
Do you think you know what they are?
The only thing I can think of, because I didn't find any ASMR moments in the movie, is when Jimmy talks.
No, if only. No, it's when the coach hires her old head coach to be her assistant, and he's doing the ceremony where he's wafting the smoke over their heads with the feather. All those hand movements, I was just like, ASMR.
I think of ASMR as very oral, not oral, but
AUR, yeah.
Yes, audio focused. I don't think of it as like movements. So I think that's why I was focused on the sounds.
The movements are the things that work for me the best.
Ah, that makes sense. All right.
What did you think of Resball?
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think there are trite moments to it, especially in the beginning, like before we get to the really intense, serious moments. At first, I was kind of zoning out, and I was like, man, I hate that I don't like this. I feel bad because I don't like sports. I hate them. I don't like watching them. Don't like playing them, especially basketball. I find basketball torturous. Don't like it. Weirdly enough, though, I do like Hoosiers. At least I used to when I a long time ago. I haven't seen it in a very long time. But anyway, so I'm watching this and I'm like, oh God, I don't like it. But then when we start getting into the interpersonal relationships and the horrific trauma and
Yeah.
the really melodramatic elements, then I was more hooked. And then I was like, okay, what's going on? Because it feels very similarly to Friday Night Lights, which is a series I absolutely adore. Love it. It's so good. Jessica Matten as the coach is no Coach Taylor, but still, is a good coach, very, focused coach and cares about the kids. But I really love that this is Indigenous directed, written, starring, the entire cast are all Native actors. And I love that we hear Navajo language. I love that there's talk of fry bread. I love that we get a ceremony. I love that we see all of these traditions and moments and we hear them. And so I just love that facet of the film. And so it is like Hoosiers in that way. You're not wrong. But also it wildly diverges from Hoosiers because, Hoosiers is all white dudes and this is not. And so I think even though it is a very formulaic story in many ways, and it's also based on a book. It's based on the book Canyon Dreams. I still think that there are good moments because of the Indigenous focus. And I also, as a sidebar, I think this film looks amazing. And I think the cinematography is stunning. And the DP who worked on this, she also did Queen Sugar, which is a gorgeous looking TV show. She also did Ava DuVernay's documentary 13th, which is beautiful. So kudos to the cinematography. And also, I will say, I think Sidney Freeland does a great job balancing the themes of kind of this light, buoyant, feel good film and story, but also with these really intense, heavy themes. I think she juggles those well. So I agree with you. I think there are parts that are very formulaic and predictable, although not all.
Mm-hmm.
But I did like this more as it went along, as we get to learn the characters more. But you're right in that I don't want to say the child actors, but the classmates.
They're young, yeah.
They are young, yeah, but a lot of the classmates are not the best actors. I love seeing Amber Midthunder. She's excellent. She's always great. Love her in Prey. Love her in everything she's in. I wish we could have gotten a little bit more of her here. And I agree with you. Julia Jones is exceptional. She's a fantastic actor.
Yeah. The scenes with her and Jimmy are great.
So good. So good. Those might be my favorite scenes.
Absolutely. She's really, she's always captivating, but she's just really excellent in this.
Agreed.
There is one other thing though that really just like the announcers at the basketball games. I just couldn't stand them.
They're so annoying.
I hated them so much.
I feel so bad, but they're so annoying.
I don't know if there are actors or if they're actual announcers, but I will say if they are announcers, they need to give up because nobody wants to hear what these guys are selling. Now I don't generally like announcers at all. I would rather
don't either.
I would just rather watch a baseball game with no yapping. And sometimes I have turned off the sound and watched a game.
Yep.
And that's one of the reasons I don't really care for basketball, but one of the reasons I stopped watching it is because and this is sports in general, just the yapping and the yapping.
Yes.
Just shut up.
That's why I hate sport, watching sports for the most part. I hate the talking. Although weirdly enough, when it's during the Olympics or the qualifiers for gymnastics or ice skating, that commentary I'm totally okay with. It's very weird. I don't understand it, but
yeah, I mean there are some sports I feel like in the Olympics, for example, where you need to know, I don't know how fucking curling works. So please explain it to me.
Right. Yeah. It's helpful to have especially when they have people who've done the sport before and they can provide insight. Like
exactly.
In this year's Olympics, that was particularly interesting to me in the women's gymnastics, where they had like a former competitor, like, being able to give like commentary on the ins and outs of things. But then you had that like annoying guy who was with her, and I don't remember who the commentator was, but he just kept talking about Simone Biles, and like no one else is like, okay, there are other gymnasts here that we can talk about.
Other medaling gymnasts, come on.
I mean, Simone Biles is epically amazing, though.
She is.
Of course.
Yeah.
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 Okay, so that's all I have to say about Resball. I mean, it's fine for what it is, and I think it gets a couple extra points for a different angle.
Mm-hmm.
That angle being Resball. Let's just call just say Resball. But otherwise,
Yeah, I will say that I like the fact that Sydney Freeland is not only is she a Navajo filmmaker, but she's also a trans woman, which I just think is great. Like, we need more Native American directors and filmmakers, and we need more trans women filmmakers. So I think that's great that we're seeing a Native American story about Navajo Nation, and it's told by Native American filmmakers. I think that's great.
Yeah. I should mention I have seen Drunktown's Finest, which is
her first film.
Yeah, which I think is I liked that.
Nice. Okay.
I saw that when I was writing for the Santa Fe Reporter, so I had forgotten until right this moment that that's a Sydney Freeland movie. So anyway, that's a good movie. And if you like Resball, you should probably check that out too.
Yeah. And she also worked on Echo, the Marvel series. So if you like her work here, or if you like to work there, also check it out here. Yeah. All right. And that is Resball premiered at TIFF, and it is playing in select theaters now. As of it opened, I almost said November. I don't even know what month we're in. September 13th, and it will premiere on Netflix September 27th. All right, so let's move on to In the Summers, which is a drama film that's semi-autobiographical. It is written and directed by Alessandra Lacarassa Samudio in her directorial debut. This premiered at Sundance, and it stars Renee Perez, Sasha Calle, Leo Cahill, and as well as other cast members. And let me give you the synopsis. Siblings Violetta and Ava live with their mother, but every summer they travel to New Mexico to spend time with their loving but unpredictable father in this moving drama that follows them from adolescence to adulthood. Yeah, so this is broken up into 4 chapters, and we start with the children, Violetta and Ava, and they're going to see their father. And so they're almost like little vignettes in that we get to see snippets of their lives as they spend time with their father, who is very charismatic, very gregarious, but also very volatile, as he clearly has a problem with alcoholism. And so they go to see him, and there's kind of some, like awkwardness and everything, but they clearly are, like they want to tell him about things. Like Violetta is like, I'm about to collect rocks. And, Ava's like, I'm going to collect rocks too. And then she's like, no, you're not, stop copying me. And he takes them to play pool, and he has inherited his mother, their abuela's house, so there's a pool and everything. And I think it's really interesting that the pool also kind of tells the story as the pool, through the summers, the pool gets more and more degraded until finally it's completely empty and is used as like a playpen, which is interesting. But yeah, so they're spending the summer there, and then the next time we see them, they're a bit older, and there's a problem when there's a party and the dad is, drinking a lot and gets into a fight with Violetta. And I should say also Violetta has cut her hair She has Ava take these little scissors, these like terrible like children's scissors,
the dull
and
kid scissors.
dullest scissors, and like chopping her hair, and she's like shorter, because it's very obvious that Violetta is queer right from an early age, or that she's more on the butch side, and which later she does come out as queer. But yeah, and so at this party, Violetta and her father get into a fight, and he like pushes her and he's like, you think you know better than everybody, and he insults her, and so she cries. But then one of the girls in the town in Las Cruces, New Mexico, which is where their dad lives, like listens to music with her, and they kind of have like a moment. And then another summer, but later on in the same trip, the dad's like, okay, we're going to go on a drive. And he takes them. And I should say also in the first summer, he takes them and he's been drinking, and he's like, we're going to play the swerve game where we're not going to stop. And he almost crashes the car. And then this summer, he takes them on a night trip and he absolutely crashes the car, and so badly that the car has flipped over, and he has to pull his two daughters from the wreckage, and he has Ava on his back because she's conscious, and then he's pulling Violetta's body with like a blanket, and he's screaming help, and then it cuts to black. So, and then the next summer, we've skipped ahead some more, and Ava's now a teenager, and Violetta has not come.
Well, it's played at first like Violetta may be dead.
That's true.
I thought, because they don't. What were you going to say? Something?
Yeah, when in the individual like almost title cards between the segments, you see like pictures and things like that.
And you see her,
you see her graduating high school. Or
exactly.
That's true.
So I was like, okay, no, she's definitely not dead.
No, but if you didn't pay attention to that, you're right. You might think initially that she had died, but no.
I may have not paid attention to the title cards.
Well, you got to pay attention to everything. But no, it's a fair thing. It happens very quickly. So no, I totally hear what you're saying, Dave. But yeah, and so Violetta doesn't come, probably because of what happened, and I can't say I blame her.
Yeah.
But then Ava is like trying to get her father's attention, and throughout the whole film, it's very clear he really admires Violetta's intelligence and passion for science, which he has. Like, he takes the kids stargazing, and he talks about Violetta's good grades. And Ava's always kind of like grasping for like these crumbs of like affection or focus. And he's much harder on her. And like one point at a party, he talks about, well, Violetta's so smart, so she doesn't need to look great, which is like a compliment, but a backhanded compliment. It's so terrible. But then he says, and Ava, she looks just like her mother. So you wonder like, oh, is that why he's kind of, more of a dick to her, because she reminds him of the mother. But anyway, so Ava's spending a lot of time alone because their father now has a new girlfriend named Yenny, and he has a new baby named Valentina. So he's spending lots of time either drunk or high with Yenny and the baby. And so Ava's kind of doing her own thing, and she's skateboarding, and she's kind of, she's drinking, and she's kind of hanging out on her own. And then in the final summer, both girls are now not girls, they're both adults, and they've graduated college. And Violetta reconnects with the girl that she saw earlier, because they've stayed in touch, and they hook up. And then Ava is kind of more like doesn't really seem to care so much anymore about her father's attention, and they are not staying with him, even though it's very clear he is sober, and he and his girlfriend have broken up. And
he's got the baby.
He's got the baby.
Yeah.
They've broken up. And although I do wonder if he's just got the baby for like the summer, but it doesn't seem that way. It seems like he's got custody.
Like full custody.
Yeah, exactly. So he's sober. He's got Valentina, the baby, who's now like, I think like 4 or 5. And Violetta and Ava are staying at like an Airbnb somewhere else. And he keeps trying to get them to spend more time. And they're like, no, Poppy, we'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you later. And he tries to get them to stay. And they're like, no, we're going to go back. We're tired. And the other thing that I've forgotten is that there's this woman, Carmen, who's kind of like a continuous thread throughout their lives too, because she's a bartender and a childhood friend, sort of their father. And she's kind of a nurturing caregiver for them throughout this whole thing. But yeah, this is a film that I absolutely adore. It is one of my favorite films of the year. I've thought about it a lot since I saw it back in January. And so I was really delighted to talk about it with you guys. So I want to know, what do you guys think of this? Evan, you start.
Sure. I have to get something off my chest just immediately, just because it's the first thing I saw when I watched the movie.
Okay.
There's a title card that's like a statement from the director about featuring Spanish language dialogue in the movie that is not subtitled and intentionally not subtitled.
Mm-hmm.
And that rubbed me the wrong way, like immediately. Like watching those scenes, even though I don't speak Spanish, I could reasonably pick up what was going on from the context. But it just really bothered me for audiences that are either deaf or hard of hearing that there is no subtitle there for them to be able to understand what's going on. I understand like why someone might want to make that as an artistic choice, but I find it exclusionary to people with disabilities, and so that just really made me agitated. But aside from that, I found this movie incredibly moving and heartbreaking, and it was like I got really invested in it. I think it was interesting to see both the trajectories of the kids, the parallels of their journeys, like you mentioned that the father is so much more invested in Violetta for her intellect, and he clearly values her intelligence and looks down on Ava for being what he deems less intelligent. Like later when she comes to visit and she's not quite understanding the rules of the game, he's kind of like talking shit about her and making fun of her. And like then she gets good at pool because he loves pool, and then she goes and plays and like she wins, which is like a really amazing thing, and he just has like no reaction, and he's kind of like a sore loser, like, okay, I'm just gonna go home now. Like that's heartbreaking. And then like Violetta, he's like, oh, I want you to like smoke with me for the first time, so like we're gonna sit and like smoke this joint. And then later when the father is like spiraling into like drug and alcohol abuse, like Ava's just sitting there by herself like smoking a joint, like all alone, and just seeing her there all alone by herself. That particular stretch of film was like really hard for me to watch, especially seeing that it's like the baby is there crying in the crib and like wailing, and like no one is there to like pick up the baby and figure out what's going on. Like the mom's like asleep, he's gone God knows where. So there's a lot of stuff that I found like incredibly heartbreaking over the course of this movie. Like from the beginning, where it's like clear that he's trying, he is trying, he's not a great father, but he's trying. And then it's just like he becomes terrible, like a terrible, shitty, neglectful father to like to multiple kids, including like a new kid. In the car accident scene, although you don't see any of it like happen, you just see the aftermath of it. That was also very like, oh my God, I can't believe this is horrible. He like took his eyes off the road, he crashed the car, he flipped it, he's got to like drag both of them from the wreck. And then they just like cut after that, leaving you like, oh God, what happened there? So, but I like that we come back around and they've come back to visit as adults, and the father has gotten his act together. Like he is clearly sober now. He is trying hard, but also the like seeing the heartbreak of that as like these two older kids are like, why didn't I get this dad when I was that age? So
and Ava in particular is just heartbroken that entire fourth segment, and it's really sad.
I think she's also numb too.
Well,
like,
yeah.
I think her heartbreak is manifesting as like she's numb.
Mhm.
But you're right. But you're absolutely right. She's heartbroken. Yeah. I think Violetta is too, but in kind of a different way, because I think
Right.
she's made amends with the fact that like she's almost like distanced herself in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, she's got
Yeah.
like kind of a distant, like a,
Yeah.
she's decided to be
Yes.
distant from it
Mhm.
in a
Mhm.
way that makes it seem less awful. I
Right.
guess.
But there is still
Right.
kind of like a simmering anger that's kind of like just bubbling below the surface, and you feel like it's
Mhm.
like one fight away from like boiling back over.
Yep.
But yeah, Ava does seem to be very numb. Like, I think the best evidence is that scene where
The sex
She's-
scene.
the sex scene where she's just
Yes.
not even
Sexy
paying
sex
attention
scene
at
ever?
all.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like looking at the stars and the guy's like, "Hey, are you doing all right?" And she's like, "What? Yeah, oh yeah."
She's like, yeah, and then she like pushes his head away. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Yeah, it's a really interesting juxtaposition with that cutting to the sex scene between Violetta and I can't remember
Camilla?
the what.
Camilla, I think was the
Camilla,
character.
yeah, Camilla, yes. And I think that's really interesting because that's a sex scene where they're both, it's a queer scene. They're both really excited, and at least at first, because it goes to a very not great place
Yeah.
when her scar from the accident is exposed and Camilla like draws attention to it.
Mhm.
Yeah, but initially they're very excited, which is kind of a
Right. And it goes from being
jarring difference than what's happening with Ava and her sex scene.
and it goes from being a tender sex scene to what feels like a very not tender sex
Yes.
scene after that.
Yeah.
And it's like very kind of like
Yes.
uncomfortable.
Right.
And when
the look on
um,
Camilla's face like is
right.
awful.
I mean, I think we know based on the fact that Violetta wakes up alone in the bed the next morning with no sign of Camilla, I think tells
Right.
you everything you need to know about how that
Yes.
interaction went.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely.
I mean, this movie is all showing, I think, very
Mhm.
little telling, which I respect about it. But it creates this atmosphere where you're just like, your heart is breaking along with these kids as you're kind of like moving through their lives. And I mean, I think the actor who plays the father, what's his name, Residente? He's also like a musician, right?
Yeah, that's his
Yeah.
musician name. Yeah, it's Rene Perez. But yeah, he's one of my absolute favorite performances of the year. I think he's
He's
excellent.
He
Really
is
great in this.
Really great.
Yeah.
You just very charismatic, very captivating. Like the kind of guy that you love to hate, like the textbook love to hate kind of guy, because you see how charming he can be when he wants to be, but
Mhm.
also like how shitty and neglectful and like how much he like looks down on other people. It has
he's
a chip on
emotionally
his shoulder.
abusive.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he's toxic. Like he's just I do respect though, after the scene where he has scared the shit out of his kid by the like swerving game, that he does realize how much he screwed up in that moment. Like he looks back, he sees how freaked out Violetta is, and he's like, oh God. You see the look on his face like, I fucked up.
Yeah, although you're absolutely right. But then the next summer is the one where they're at the bar and he's having like pitcher after drink after pitcher.
Yeah.
And Violetta's like, Dad, you shouldn't drive. And he's like, fuck you. What are you talking about? You're a kid. You don't know anything. And she's like, no, you shouldn't drive. You should have Carmen drive us home. He's like, I'm not going to have a carpet muncher drive home, which is revolting.
I didn't even
But-
pick up that he said that.
He did
Yeah, he
say
Oh
says
that.
my
that.
God.
Yeah, he's homophobic as fuck. Like, which is doubly horrible because his daughter is queer. Like, so yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway, but so it's like, yes, he does realize what he did was so terrible, clearly, and he's feeling shame. But then he does like almost the same thing later, and then he does do the same thing later. Like, it's ugh.
Yeah. And I like what you were saying too about the pool, like representing the
Yeah.
stages too, because it's like it's crystal clear waters when they're kids,
Yeah,
and then
beautiful.
like it's by the time they come back, it's getting kind of like gross, and no one goes in it.
Mhm.
And then like after that, it's like there's like no water, and it's just like gross, like muddy sludge.
Yeah.
And then when he's gotten his act together, it's empty but it's clean, and it's like the daughter Natalia's like got a slide and toys and all kinds of
Mhm.
things in there, and she's like drawing with chalk on the side of the It's like really cute and really sweet.
Mm-hmm.
I also appreciate how much Violetta and in particular Ava seem to really love Natalia.
Yes.
That's very sweet.
They're super tender with her and very
Yeah.
loving and buy her like gifts and like spend time with her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the scene where they all went sledding together, and what was that, White Sands?
White
Is that the name of
Sands.
the-
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought
White
that
Sands
was really
National
sweet.
Park. Yeah. It's also interesting because they want to do that earlier in the film. And he's like, we're not doing that. And one of the daughters is like, why not? That's what normal families do. And he's like, normal's boring. So I love that they do that. They end up doing that later in the film.
Yeah.
Yep. They do the normal, not boring thing. It looks like they have a blast together. as a family.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, they encourage Natalia to like go down by herself without
Mm-hmm.
without being like, oh, come on. They're just like, yeah, you can do it. And then she does it and they're like, yay.
I know. It's so supportive and sweet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that they're not kind of taking it out on her, that their dad was
Right.
shitty to them and like awesome with her. Like, because
Mhm.
that dynamic does happen in families, you know, when someone
Mm.
has a second family and then there's just like all of the resentment, but you know, from the, you know, kids from the earlier marriage or marriages, like, oh God.
Mm,
Yeah.
indeed.
All right. Dave, what did you think?
I thought this was great.
Yay.
Just, you know, another small budget movie that's very quiet. Well, quiet adjacent. And I think, you know, just watching their dad spiral is so hard. And I mean, I unfortunately, I think it's kind of a natural reaction in the, you know, after the second segment, which is when the car accident is, right?
Mhm. Yes.
It, you know, I feel like a lot of things can happen. You can either, you know, clean up right away or it just gets worse, and he just gets worse. And it's really sad. And I didn't know what the ending was going to be. I figured he would probably get his shit together, but the way all three of them, the adult Violetta and Ava, and then their dad, are so excellent in that fourth segment, because just
Mhm.
they barely speak, but everything is etched on their faces. In particular,
Yeah.
him, he is just a ball of remorse, and like you can tell that he's angry that they don't want to like hang out with him as much, but he knows better than to like
Push
be
it.
shitty to them.
Yep.
So he's trying to be as supportive as he can. And then when he gives them that apology when they're out for lunch after they do the sledding, and but the way it comes out, he's like, he says, "I'm sorry," and then he says, "I'm sorry you did better without me." And it's like, I know you meant that, but you didn't mean that. It's just like you're saying, I hope you're saying, I'm sorry that I'm glad you turned out so well, even though I was shitty. You know, I hope that's what you're saying. I don't know if that really comes across, but and then just the way when they drop off and when he drops them off the last time and they're all just kind of quiet, but then to see Ava just like go back and give Natalia a second hug and like tousle her hair, you know, and it's just so sweet. And it's like, and then Natalia tries to sneak her way into the front seat, and he's like, he's like, okay, go get in the back seat and put your seatbelt on. And she gets in her car seat. Yeah. And, you know, and you can see that he has that moment where I think that he's thinking that's the way the other girls should have had it too, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm getting teared up thinking about it.
That ending is devastating.
It is a bittersweet ending. And then to see the girls, like the adults, I should say, waiting for to board their plane, and they're just like standing there, you know, eating licorice together. Just, you know, kind of like, you know, oh God. So roof stoof. And I need you two to correct me if I'm wrong. In the third segment, the one where Ava goes alone, and the bartender, whose name is what?
Carmen,
thank you. Pours her the shot. Did Carmen give her first drink, or did she already had one at her dad's house? Am I nuts?
I think she'd already had a drink. But
Okay.
I can't.
Because I wanted to be like, I really hope she's not drinking because Carmen opened the door for her. But
no, I don't think so. I think she had like a can, like a beer can in her.
I think she probably would have gotten to it anyway. But
it seemed like there was, at the bare minimum, no one was paying attention enough to know whether she was drinking. But likely the dad was probably like, you're old enough. Here's a beer.
Yeah.
Well,
he's got that scene where he passes out in the kitchen and she tries to, get him back to bed and he falls asleep on her knee.
Yep.
It's like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah, that scene was brutal too.
I know.
Yeah. But it is really interesting by the fourth summer when, Ava's smoking and she's like, and almost immediately when they get to their dad's house, she's like, can I have a beer? Is there any beer here? We need beer. And at the party, she's like, we need more beer. We're running out of beer. And it's like, oh God, is she going to have a drinking problem too?
Maybe.
I hope not, but yeah.
Yeah, or maybe just being there is driving her to drink.
Right.
Oh God,
right. She needs to numb.
Self-medicate here.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm delighted that you both loved this. I will say, Evan, I'm glad you mentioned the beginning and the kind of footnote. I think you're right. I think that not enough people think about disabled viewers, because I know when I was watching it, and I normally try to or would like to, but I didn't think about that. I thought about, oh, isn't this great that she's a Latin filmmaker and she's not catering to non-Spanish speaking audiences. Isn't that great? Because a lot of Spanish speakers code switch and switch between languages. So I'm really glad that you brought that up, because you're absolutely right. It would have been, and I did turn on the subtitles just to see. And no, you're absolutely right. They do not come on. Yeah. So
I used the auto-generated subtitles as I was watching them on my Apple TV. So I at least got the English subtitles that, they're not perfect because they're auto-generated, but not hearing the Spanish stuff, I was like, oh man.
Yeah. But no, I think that's a really great observation. I will say that this film destroyed me because I think this is a brilliantly written, directed, acted film. I think and I think you're both right on everything. I think what it chooses to show and what it chooses to hold back on is really exceptional and very perceptive. This hit way too close to home for me, way too close to home. And my parents got divorced when I was 6. I saw my father sporadically, and my father ended up remarrying, and my stepmother is lovely. My stepsister is lovely. But he basically was a father to my stepsister. And so this hit me in so many personal ways about having a very complicated and fractured relationship, with someone. And, and I also oh my God, it just hits too close to home. And there's addiction in my family, so that hit close to home. And I think this really nails it. And what I love especially, Alessandra Lacarassa Samudio said in their director's statement that she had a the car accident that happens in the film is what happened to her and to her sister, and her father was driving. And she learned later in life that her father dragged their bodies. And she thought about the accident and the trauma of that, and the trauma her father endured with that, and how they had this kind of collective, shared trauma. And she had this really complicated relationship with her father where he loved science and was the smartest person she ever knew. But also he had really toxic traits. And so through this film, she's really trying to work out her relationship to him and her feelings. And what I think this film does so brilliantly is it showcases Vicente, the father, in a very real light. We see his magnetism and charisma and his, his fun side, and how much he loves his daughters, but it doesn't shy away from his toxicity and his addiction and his abuse. But it never makes excuses for him. Like, it's like, no, he's a shitty parent. He's trying his best, absolutely, but he's a shitty parent, and it does not shy away from that. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate that. And that scene that you were talking about, Dave, where he feels so much remorse, it is so heartbreaking because he can never get that time back. It's gone. It's over. He's never going to be able to repair the relationships the way he wants to. It's just not. It's not. The damage is done. And, that doesn't mean they can't, have a relationship or love each other, but it just will never be what he wants it to be. Oh my God, it's so good. It's so good. And the look on the two sisters' faces as they're together and kind of they have this shared, pain. Oh my God, this movie, I just love it so much. I love it so much. And I agree with you. I think the performances are just exceptional. I think, like I said, Renee Perez, one of my favorite performances of the year. Sasha Calle, who does the adult Ava, is excellent, and Leo Mahil, who does adult Violetta, is great. They're a trans non-binary person, and they're excellent in the film Mutt. If you haven't seen it, you should. They're great in it, just as they're great here. I could go on and on. I absolutely adore this film. I love it. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it for the past 9 months.
Yeah. Yeah, Renee Perez is really. I barely know him, and I only know him as a musician. So it's kind of. I mean, this is like some of the best acting I think I've ever seen ever.
Yeah, and mostly what he's done is himself in documentaries. So.
Yeah. So it's just like he seems like a person as opposed to an actor playing a character.
Absolutely.
Actually, all of them do, especially when they get to the adult stage. These are very, very finely realized performances.
Absolutely. I will say though that the child, the middle Ava, Allison Salinas,
she's very good too.
She's great. I think she's really, really great.
Well, the director, I know you've said her name multiple times, and of course I've forgotten. Really great casting. Found actors with, in the case of all the girls, really expressive faces, and able to just convey so much without speaking. So good stuff. Hard
Absolutely.
stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, hard stuff. I know 2 movies that are really, really hard. Yeah. Did you guys?
And Baby Boom.
And yes, on Patreon.
That's on Patreon.
Yes. I kind of lightened things up. Did you guys have any final thoughts on In the Summers?
I do not. I just, if you have the intestinal fortitude, I'd say please see it.
Evan, what about you?
I guess it's like locationally interesting to me that it takes place in Las Cruces, because that's where my dog was rescued from. So I'm like, I kind of like have a window into what that area is like.
Yeah, I would say if you are a person, I was like, even if you're not, but especially if you're a person who has complicated family dynamics, especially if you're a kid, of divorced parents, this one hits home a lot. Like, damn, God.
I mean, even if you don't, it's a gut punch. For me watching it, it was just, hit after hit to the stomach.
Yeah. Hence my mention of intestinal fortitude.
Yep. Yeah, you got to tense those ab muscles and keep them tensed.
No, absolutely. But and that's the thing. That's the great thing about movies, right? Is that, they foster empathy and let you see windows into other lives, other worlds. And sometimes they show you, yourself, and that's powerful too. So absolutely. So this is in select theaters now. So please go see it when it is playing near you, when you can. So let's do a recap. Resball. Dave, would you recommend it?
Your mileage may vary.
Okay. I would recommend it. I think it handles its topics very well, and I think we need more Indigenous films, so I would recommend this. In the summers, I think it's safe to say probably for all of us, we would highly recommend this.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's going to do it for us at Spoiler Piece. We want to give a huge thank you to our sponsor piece patron, Heather Sachs. Thank you, Heather, so much.
Thank you, Heather.
Thanks, Heather.
And while we're doling out thank yous, we also want to give a huge thank you to our editor, Otto Clamor. Otto, thanks so much.
Thank you, Otto.
Thanks, Otto.
You can find Spoiler Piece anywhere you get podcasts, and you can also find us at our website, spoilerpiece.com. You can follow us all over at social media. We're at Spoiler Piece Theater on Facebook. We're at Spoiler Piece on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and Threads. Let us know what you think. We always love hearing what you have to say. You can come chat with us on social media. And speaking of chatting, you can email us, spoilerpiece@gmail.com, or you can give us a call
at 862-21-PIECE.
Leave us a voicemail message, send us a text, let us know what you think of these movies, or if you haven't seen them yet, if you're excited to see them. And if you want to show us some love, you can go to our website and it'll take you to our TeePublic store where you can get Spoiler Piece merch. You can also give us a rating. That helps us out tremendously. You can go to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece. We'll take you to your preferred platform of choice, or you can just rate us directly on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. Gets the word out about the show, which is always helpful. And if you really, really love the show, consider becoming a patron if you're not already. For $5 a month, you get access to weekly bonus episodes like this week's, where we talked about the monthly poll winner Baby Boom, where we were talking about, you could vote on fall themed films, and we talk about that. Had a great time. So yeah, and we can also have access to our back catalog of hundreds of bonus episodes. Those are always fun. And if you already are a patron, thank you so much. And thank you so much for listening. My name is Megan Kearns. I write reviews for Edge Media Network. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and a member of Gallica. I'm also a co-host of the Slashers podcast. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at OpinionS World, or on Instagram and Letterboxd at The OpinionS.
I'm Dave Riedel. I write about movies. You can, I'm also a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and I'm on all the social medias, Blue Sky, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, Threads, as Dave Sees Movies.
My name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, co-author of Your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living, and co-host of the It's the Pictures podcast. You can follow me on social media as Real Recon. That's real as in film reel.
Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.